Another true freshman star has emerged on this Penn State team, and he should absolutely be in the lineup going forward. Plus, Penn State is set to rewrite the history books yet again this weekend and go after a record that hasn't been broken since 1951.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling, and as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State Wrestling and Penn State Football. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcasting network out there. On today's show, Penn State is set to make history yet again, but this record has stood since 1951. It's the all-time dual meet win streak. Oklahoma State, it was set at 76. Well, Penn State's going to win 2 dual meets here at the Journeyman Duals, which we're going to talk about later on in the show with North Dakota State and Stanford. But more takeaways from the Wyoming dual meet, where we kind of got some, a little bit of a reality check again with both Connor Mirasola and Cael Mirasola dropping 2 tough bouts against their counterparts from Wyoming. But the biggest takeaway overall, Nate Desmond emerges. So the conversation's been about PJ Duke, Marcus Blaze. I know he's not wrestling this season, but Masanosuke Ono. So in the shuffle, Nate Desmond's going to get lost, but we actually did have some conversations about him here, because he upset Luke Lilledahl at the Black Knight Invitational, and now he bumps up 2 weight classes. Should he be in the lineup going forward? I say yes. I say why not? Because we know that Braden Davis is sticking with the red shirt. What went into that plan? What went into that idea? Not entirely sure, but you had Aaron Nagao, and I think that's why. They wanted to leverage Aaron Nagao this season, and you have Braden Davis's red shirt, so why not maximize it out of convenience, okay? But Aaron Nagao, if he's not 100%, Nate Desmond might give you the most upside at the end of the day. And you still have January, February. It's okay for him to not take a red shirt this season. Nate Desmond, it'd be one thing if it was a close bout. And I know that's not going to be his toughest match. And we'll get some more clarity this weekend, right? Because he'll face at least one tough opponent, one comparable opponent in Consiglio from Stanford, top 15 wrestler at 141, if he does in fact go. But my assumption is that he will. Because this event, the Journeyman Duals, it counts as one event. So therefore, it doesn't jeopardize the red shirt if Penn State wants to keep it that way. And it seems, Cael Sanderson doesn't really give us a look into his plans, because he seemed, I don't know if dismissive is necessarily the right word, but wasn't, he talked about how Desmond could wrestle at 125, 133, 141, all of the weight classes there. And the plan initially was for him to be essentially a backup. But then you defeat Lilledahl at the lightweight spot. And Marcus Blaze is at 133, but you have an opening at 141. If Nagao is not 100%, or there's an opportunity, because we know how this is how Penn State operates, is that no spot is safe. So we'll talk about Connor Mirasola a lot more in the upcoming segment, but Cael alluding to the fact that Josh Barr and Connor Mirasola are going to wrestle off for that spot at 197, even though Barr was an NCAA finalist a season ago. Aaron Nagao, it's the same thing. 141 isn't a guarantee for him to be the starter just because you come back from injury there. Nate Desmond has made his case to me as far as being the guy, if he wins that theoretical wrestle off, would deserve to be in the lineup going forward. I'm okay with him not taking it. It is completely fine if he doesn't take. Well, it's, it kind of jeopardizes things long term. Does it really at the end of the day? I think it does create a little bit of a cluster next season, because you'll have Aaron Nagao, you'll have Braden Davis in theory, right? But that's next season. What do they give you right now? You want to send your best lineup out there during NCAAs, And with all the chatter around where does Penn State finish, because the projections say, Flow Wrestling says, Intermat says that Penn State isn't exactly guaranteed to win an NCAA title this season because Ohio State's right there, then are you going to pull out all the stops? And I know that doesn't factor everything in. I've already had this conversation. Josh Barr isn't factored in just yet. Okay. You have the discrepancies there because Aaron Nagao has been hurt and Cael Sanderson has been wrestling, right? So you put in somebody like Nate Desmond into the lineup who clearly has a ton of upside. He's been a national prep champion before out of high school. I get that it's high school, but I'm talking about what potential he has when we're getting into the NCAA postseason. You get him training, you get him actually focusing on 141. He can be somebody that definitely is an All-American. I don't think he's beating Jesse Mendez. Sergio Vega looks fantastic. Talk about a true freshman with upside from Oklahoma State, right? But that's a 141-pound weight class that is really good. Again, Brock Hardy or Ryan Jack, for example, Zeth Romney. And as I start to name some of those other wrestlers, I think, Nate Desmond at his peak, if he really settles into this weight class, I don't know about necessarily Brock Hardy, but Oliveri, I feel like that could be a wrestler he could defeat. But it starts with Aaron Nagao. You got to be able to beat the guy that is in the mat room alongside you right now. So before I start projecting any theoretical battles, we got to see how things go this weekend. Because it wouldn't jeopardize his red shirt, I fully expect Desmond to go this weekend unless Nagao is healthy. But the way that Sanderson did phrase it, that they're being cautious, they're taking their time, they're not rushing back Aaron Nagao because they don't have to, because you have someone like Nate Desmond that can fill in this situation and it doesn't hurt his red shirt. So if that's the case, you either have someone that can back up any of your spots, 125, 133, 141. But I say open it up. Make it a competition at 141. I don't think it should be just Aaron Nagao gets the spot when he returns from injury. No. If Nate Desmond wants to challenge him for that spot and not take a red shirt this season, by all means. I've seen enough from Desmond between upsetting Lilledahl at the Black Knight Invitational to wrestling up 2 weight classes on the spot like this against Wyoming and winning decisively. Again, not against the best competition, but that's where you follow it up and you get more comparable competition this weekend against Consiglio, potentially, right? The projected lineup say so, against Stanford. So follow it up with Desmond there. But going forward, he very well, both Nagao and Desmond, both healthy at 141. I don't see why Desmond doesn't give you more upside at that spot than Aaron Nagao at this point in time. And I think Nagao can be an All-American too. I think both of those guys have All-America potential. But getting to the semifinal, right? Not just sneaking onto the podium, somebody that can actually surprise and really get rolling. That winning against Lilledahl, I think gives us a really good perspective of what Desmond can do. But I know this is a different kind of animal here, moving up 2 weight classes on the fly. Let me finish up with this before we talk about the Mirasola twins and their 2 tough defeats. Desmond isn't a lightweight. He can wrestle at 125, but we interviewed him on this show. It wasn't even the official plan. It was uncertain because the idea was that he was going to outgrow 125. And I'm saying if you already know that's the case, why not just go for it? If you already know that he's 133 or 141, it was going to be the future one way or another. Why wait? Have him put on the weight now, because you have an opportunity here to solidify 141 even further. If Aaron Nagao wasn't hurt, I don't think you entertain this at all. But doors open pretty randomly at this point in time, and Penn State has the luxury that they can fill in any of these gaps just about at any point in time. It's the depth. We talked about the depth going into this season, and ironically enough, I'm still surprised by the pieces that are in this room that fill in from the depth chart, right? Desmond moving up to 141. I didn't see that happening this season, but since it was something that was going to happen down the road, I'm saying why kick the can down the road? All right, let's talk about the Mirasola twins, because as eager as I am to watch what Desmond does potentially this weekend at the Journeyman Duals in Penn State to rewrite the history books, the Mirasola twins, you got a reality check there. As Cole still struggles with comparable, better competition, and Connor, Joey Novak, just a little too much to handle, even though it was close through those first two frames. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Wayfair. A holidays show up faster than we expect, and you're still putting together gifts, last-minute decor, or getting your home ready for guests. Wayfair has you covered. Whether you need a quick room refresh, new bedding, or those final seasonal touches, Wayfair makes it easy to get what you need fast. Wayfair truly is your one-stop shop for everything home, with decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, and gifts for every style and every budget, all delivered quickly and easily. Their selection's huge. So you have bedding, you have decor, you have kitchen gear, you have kids' room updates. You can find everything all in one place with Wayfair. It's so easy to shop by style. You'll be able to pick pieces that actually fit your home instead of just guessing. Wayfair items that you order will instantly refresh your space without a big project. And Wayfair is perfect for gifting too. They have guides, tons of options, and something for everyone on any budget. No massive delivery fees, which means no stress. Get last-minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and decor to celebrate the holidays for way less. Head over to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That is WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. You have live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. And you can bet on more than just NFL football, college football as well. Lines are available for Penn State and Clemson in their upcoming bowl game. The Nittany Lions are 3.5-point underdogs against the Tigers, plus 128 on the money line, minus 154 if you're thinking Clemson. The total is set at 48.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. That's FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. And so to come on this episode, we're going to talk about Penn State making history, but also break down Stanford and North Dakota State, particularly Stanford, though. That's a top 10 team. Some very intriguing matchups. Marcus Blaze going up against a formidable opponent, PJ Duke, right? We already talked about Nate Desmond here, but there are definitely some matches where anybody that is underestimating or under-projecting Penn State to this point in time, right? Marcus Blaze, PJ Duke, and everybody else will solidify that, right? So let's talk about Connor and Cole Mirasola, because I know the Wyoming dual meet was just almost a week to this point in time, but takeaways here. I mean, Connor Mirasola getting that true test against Joey Novak, who's certainly going to be an NCAA finals contender. I put him in that category of this guy's solid. He's solid in the top four. Joey Novak has certainly upside. Now, Josh Barr, and this is why this is a good measuring stick for Connor Mirasola, because if Josh Barr is an NCAA finals contender, right? Joey Novak, okay, so we don't know. We're not going to necessarily get to see Josh Barr and Connor Mirasola in a wrestle-off this time around. We did last year, right? But this time around, Connor did make this one really close. And it was nothing to nothing after two frames. Joey Novak is a defensive wrestler. And we never got to see Josh Barr go up against Joey Novak a season ago because Novak was dealing with injuries. But when he's fully healthy, the guy is elite. The guy is the real deal. So this was everything I was expecting it to be. High stakes, no one really wanted to make that first mistake. And you could see that, but then Connor, ends up dealing with an injury in the middle of it and toughs through it, right? There doesn't seem to be any concerns at this point in time. But you could definitely see things kind of slow down for Mirasola on his end, and then Joey Novak, kind of being a shark in the water, so to speak, and was able to kind of capitalize on that. And then it was just kind of one takedown turns into another, and Novak just wins fairly decisively. If you're scoreboard watching, you're like, okay, Connor Mirasola is way behind here. He's outside of this category. You're correct to say that he is outside of this category. So what I said originally when, hey, Penn State very well might have the best 1-2 punch. They might have the best two best wrestlers at 197. That's not the case. And I know a majority of people would have bought into that, right? So you had the right idea here that, yeah, there's Connor Mirasola certainly has upside, but is he elite right now? Is he a finals contender right now? And, we're eager to get Jeff Byers back on the show. Logistically, we haven't been able to work it out recently here, but when we do, we'll get that other perspective to it as well. But I do think Connor is just a step behind. If there isn't that injury timeout, if Connor Mirasola doesn't get slowed down, I imagine this might go to sudden victory. Okay. Because to hold your own to, you don't score any points against Joey Novak, but you also don't let up any to that point in time either. So the 10-2 result, I'm not reading into that a whole lot other than Mirasola is close, but I still feel like he's a step or two behind. He's kind of in that second category where this guy is definitely, if the NCAA postseason was tomorrow and Connor had to wrestle, we weren't anticipating Josh Barr's return. I would trust Connor Mirasola, to be one of those guys that, hey, he can contend for the semifinals, but maybe that's his peak. That's his truest peak right now. If you were wrestling a tournament type of setting, right? If we actually saw Penn State go to the national duels, if we saw them wrestle in more of a high stakes open-ended tournament like the Cliff Keen Invitational, where there are some more highly touted wrestlers there, does Connor necessarily come in first at that tournament, right? If there's somebody else that is top tier at 197 at this point in time, probably not. But I only think Connor's going to get better. I don't think this is his peak in the future, because Josh Barr only got better. Barr, remember who he was defeating. He ends up defeating, right, Jacob Cardenas later on in February. Then picks up an injury at the Big Ten tournament, and then goes and defeats Jacob Cardenas again. So, right, Connor Mirasola, he loses today, but does he lose that same match down the road? Does he lose that in a rematch when both wrestlers fully healthy, no inconveniences? Does Connor go toe-to-toe with Joey Novak again in the middle of March? And I say yes, I do. But Josh Barr still is the wrestler. I imagine that they do wrestle that off, right? That's strictly for formalities, okay? As it should be, because no spot is safe, and Cael Sanderson's consistent with that no spot is safe. So they have wrestle offs all the time. So for Cael to allude to the fact that they are going to wrestle off, it's just because it's not a big deal in his mind that Josh Barr, being sidelined, you got to re-earn your starting spot. It's Penn State after all. But Barr, since he is solidly in that category, he is the overwhelming favorite, or he is a favorite. I want to be careful how I say that, because this class does have, again, Joey Novak, Rocky Elam, Masoma Indine of Iowa is really starting to emerge here. I like Justin Rademacher a ton over at Oregon State. I think he's somebody that emerges later on in the season as someone that has true elite upside right now and not later. So he is the favorite at 197, the clear cut when he's fully healthy. But this is a 197-pound class that, if you have Josh Barr as the starter, after those first few names there, I would say Connor's about 5th or 6th, where he's right there with Justin Rademacher. That's kind of the category that they're in, that they're just right below that group. And I think those two can put themselves into that category as long as they continue to get the work down the stretch. So that's my takeaway there from Connor. I don't read into that much. Oh, he's way far behind. He's on the outside looking in, but he can reach that point. But Barr will take back over as the starter, so he's not going to get as many matchups, as many matches in to this point. With Cael Mirasola, a little more concerned because it just kind of reinforces the fact that he struggles with the larger heavyweights. And his matchup recently here, going up against Cael, you could just tell who the more physically gifted athlete was at this point in time, and that's just kind of the price. That's just the price you pay by bulking up to heavyweight when that wasn't, when it's going to be a multi-year process. So you're paying your dues now, because Greg Kirkfleet wasn't an overwhelming dominant heavyweight. It took him multiple years. And maybe Cael is due for that, his third, his fourth season. That's fine, but it's going to take time. So Cael, the concern is he going to be even an All-American at this point? Because this is a heavyweight class that I said was deep. AJ Ferrari, bulks up to this class, but you have Younger Bastida that returns. Isaac Trumbull comes back. Nick Feldman looks fantastic. You have Ben Keeter, who's been dealing with an injury, but when he's healthy, really good for Iowa. We already saw, against Nathan Taylor, Connor Doucette at Oklahoma State, Tay Gadiali, who comes back and is wrestling now at Michigan as a transfer. And then you see Christian Cael just really get the best. The thing with Cael, though, he's just not finishing his shots. So in my mind, it's a simple fix. He's kind of doing all the things right that he needs to, but when he gets to that final pivotal point for him to win these matchups, to win these closely contested ones, and then it can get out of control and can snowball. So I feel like if you get the answer as the opponent, to kind of put a metaphor to this, the way that I see it is that if you can just get to that one weakness of Cael, if you're an opponent, you will be able to defeat him if you're comparable or better. So if you're able to kind of fend off, because Cael is relentless. I like his motor. I like his agility. He's definitely the fastest heavyweight out there. He's got the speed, but it's the strength, it's the power, it's the ability to go into your reattacks if you're not able to finish your shot. Kind of not having that height and that size advantage really does diminish what Cael is trying to do as a heavyweight here. He's so close, but I wonder, is he going to get to that breakthrough at this point in time where he's able to defeat some of those better heavyweights? Again, you are going to face Nick Feldman in due time. You'll face AJ Ferrari. I would hope so, right? You get to the Nebraska dual meet, the Ohio State dual meets later on in the season. And that's going to Gadiali against Michigan. So Penn State, Cael's going to have plenty of other tests moving forward at the heavyweight spot. So, and this weekend, of course, right? Not necessarily the elite matchups per se, but in a spot where, you'll be tested. You want to capitalize on these moments for both Connor and Cael, where they are learning experiences, and you figure this stuff out now, and they know this stuff, but then you get to see it. It's not just about iron sharpens iron against your practice partners. You actually go and get to test your theories and your moves against an opponent that's not trying to make you better. That's not trying to help you become a better wrestler on a day-by-day basis. That is going to try out there and try and beat you and expose your weaknesses. But you get some testing points, you get data points that you can go back and work on. So for Cael, it's still fairly simple, but the same thing continues to pop up against bigger and stronger wrestlers, more experience. The difference really is experience at this point in time. This isn't going to plague Cael forever. It's going to plague him, I think, just in this season. It's a noticeable difference when you stand Christian Cael, someone who's a veteran heavyweight, against Cael Mirasola. Who's in, later on in their career versus someone who is in year two. It's definitely noticeable. So for Cael, it's just about refining the technique and doing the little things that can close the gap. against some of these more elite wrestlers. But I'd be on it. I have to be honest and say I am a little concerned about right now is does he even reach All-America status this season? Because A, of what he's dealing with right now, trying to close the gap at heavyweight and adjust, and B, because this heavyweight class is absolutely loaded. It is loaded in terms of quantity, and a lot of those guys insanely talented with what was returning for this season. All right, Penn State getting ready to rewrite the history books once again, a record that's been held since 1951. Oklahoma State's dual meet street record of 76 is going to be no more. Penn State is going to make it 77 and then some. Let's talk about this piece of history, but also these matchups where PJ Duke, Marcus Blaze, others are going to be tested, and it's going to be worth the watch. That's coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Rocket Money helps you find subscriptions that you forgot that you were paying for, and helps you clean them up quickly. And you get to see all of your spending on one dashboard. It makes it easier to understand where your money is actually going. You will love how Rocket Money is automatically building budgets based on past spending. It keeps you on track without overthinking it. And you'll have bill alerts, spending notifications that help you catch the small things before they turn into big expenses. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That is rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Penn State's going to rewrite the history books once again, 77 dual meet victories in a row. It's a shame they're not going to do it at Rec Hall or the Bryce Jordan Center. So be it, but pretty cool to do it at Nashville, Tennessee for the Journeyman Duals you're going to be listening. This is going up on Saturday here, December 20th. These dual meets are going down Saturday in the late afternoon, early evening, back to back with North Dakota State and Stanford. And well, North Dakota State, this will be a fairly, I don't want to say easy, right? But Penn State is Penn State. North Dakota State is North Dakota State. This is a matchup where they should shut them out. Stanford is going to be interesting, though. Top 10 team, a lot of ranked wrestlers in this lineup. 7 out of the 10 spots, Stanford will throw out a ranked wrestler, most likely, right, with the projections. And again, at 133 and 157 in particular with Blaze and PJ Duke. But I mean, there are other ones too with Shane Van Ness, and I'm not going to discount. I know he's unranked, but Lorenzo Norman against Levi Haines, because once upon a time Norman upset Shane Griffith, an NCAA an NCAA champion in his own right. So Haines does have to watch out there. It's a good matchup for him here. But the history component, right? Penn State. I mean, the year over year, this isn't just, it's different with the NCAA postseason, because setting a points record and eventually, Penn State's going to try to go after the number of finalists and the number of individual champions, right? It's just about resetting the records, but it's condensed to one weekend. It's condensed to a 3-day frame, where you catch lightning in a bottle. And of course, it's the work that's built up over the course of the season, but it's reflective of one moment, one team, one group of individuals. Whereas this record is about sustained success year after year after year after year after year. Okay. So you get my point here, is that this has been a 5-year instance where Penn State doesn't get to this overnight. The last time they lost as a team, 19-17 against Iowa on January 31st, 2020. So this is something that is 5 years in the making to get to this point. there's a reason this record, this accolade has not has stood the test of time up until this point because of how difficult it's the magnitude of it. So I want to put that into perspective that you need everything to go your way for not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 seasons, 5 different teams. And then along the way, 77 matches where they all break in your favor because you control your own destiny, right? Cael Sanderson talks about, control what you can control. That's a mantra, consistent. I know the football, former football coach talked about that, but that's pretty right. That's just consistent across the board. But you might have an injury. You might have a match that doesn't go your way. Okay, one that you're hoping, we need this one to break in our favor. This is the turning point. This one makes or breaks this match. And Penn State hasn't been in that situation where they leave it up to chance. For 5 years straight, they've been dominant as a team. They've been undefeated. It's been unquestioned. And now, not only are you crossing the finish line, you're racing past it to where Penn State is going to continue to push that record even further, to the point where the only time it's going to be challenged, I think, this season is against the dual meet against Ohio State. And that's an if. Again, it's based on all the projections, right? But you get Penn State with its full strength lineup going into Ohio State, you best believe I'm still picking Penn State. I'm not saying, Ohio State might upset them here. No, there will be a lot of fireworks, but I still fully expect Penn State to be undefeated this season and to run with this record full into next season, 2026, 2027. So this isn't about it. It's breaking the record. It's rewriting the history books, but understanding the amount of time that went into this, and that this just the NCAA points record from the longevity standpoint, that's what we need to understand and pay respect to here, because it's about every single step of the way that Penn State doesn't happen to have bad luck get in the way, or they trip over themselves to where they falter. 77 dual meet victories in a row is nothing to bat an eye at. Some people will beg to differ about the NCAA postseason because it's kind of an all or nothing situation. I don't know. I look at 5 years of continued success without a blemish, and I say, there's a reason this hasn't been broken since 1951. So Cael doesn't want to put too much of a spotlight on it. I don't blame him, because then it puts, hey, maybe some unnecessary pressure, but Penn State, they'll roll along against North Dakota State. Let's talk about these dual meets now a little more in depth. So Penn State against North Dakota State, not the biggest test around. I kind of expected to go similar to Wyoming, but without those elite contenders at the bottom of the lineup with Joey Novak and Christian Carroll types. Okay, so Luke Lilledahl against Ezekiel Witt, and then Marcus Blaze against Tristan Daughtry. Either, again, Cael Sanderson could wrestle this weekend if Aaron Nagao is healthy. I'm expecting Nate Desmond, but Michael Olson will wrestle. Shane Van Ness against Max Peterson. PJ Duke against Gavin Drexler. Mitchell Messenbrink against Bowden Greenlee. Levi Haines against Max Magana. Rocco Welch against Aiden Breenot. Connor Mirasola or Josh Barr, right? Josh Barr could come back this weekend. He's traveling with the team against Devin Wasley. That's a possibility there. Cole Mirasola against Andrew Blackburn, forced at heavyweight. So there are only 5 ranked wrestlers, and they're all, according to Flo, they're just inside some of them are just inside the top 25. So not Penn State's toughest dual meet. But then we get to the matchup against Stanford. Okay. Luke Lilledahl going up against an All-America contender, and definitely somebody with some upside to pull some upsets in the postseason if everything goes well. Nico Provo at that lightweight spot. That's one that I have circled, and I say, I'm definitely watching that one. But the ones that I have my eye on for sure, and everybody else should. Marcus Blaze against Tyler Knox. Okay, so Marcus Blaze, well, the reason Flow Wrestling doesn't rank PJ Duke and Marcus Blaze because they haven't been wrestling, and that's understandable when you're going through the projections, right? I can understand where Flow Wrestling's coming from. They're making projections, right? It's not to condemn Penn State. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a personal vendetta because they didn't wrestle at the national duels. But I get what they're doing when it's about actual projections, and you can only go off of matches that they've wrestled. So when you see someone like Sergio Vega, who's ranked number 2, well, when you defeat Brock Hardy the way that you do at a previous dual meet, okay, that's understandable, and it's a data point that you can use into the projections. So as much as Penn State fans, and myself included, kind of point this out and saying, okay, Flow Wrestling, you're wrong for saying Penn State is projected to be now third in an NCAA tournament behind both Iowa and Ohio State. But we know, because we watch the eye test, we go off of the eye test as well and say, no, Marcus Blaze is really good, just because he hasn't wrestled somebody that's elite caliber yet. But I would expect him to defeat a Tyler Knox. And then again, Nate Desmond at 141. I want to see him go up against Jack Consiglio to kind of say, okay, what do we see with Desmond going forward at 141? Shane Van Ness against Aiden Valencia, another elite prospect back not too long ago, redshirt freshman at 149. PJ Duke against Daniel Cardenas. That's the matchup of the weekend. Or is it, right? Because you have Mitchell Messenbrink against Hunter Garvin. They've never wrestled before, if you can believe that. Messenbrink will go up against Garvin. Haines against Lorenzo Norman. I'm not batting my eye at that one, actually, because of what Norman's done in the past. Just kind of somebody that is a wild card to an extent. I don't think Norman's going to upset Haines here, but somebody that could give him fits, right? And then Rocco Welsh going up against an unranked Abe Wajikowicz. Connor Mirasola or Josh Barr, right? Does Josh Barr return this weekend? This would be a good tune-up match for him against Angelo Posada. Also a good, another good spot for Connor Mirasola in a get-right spot if he happens to go for both of these matches. And then Cole Mirasola against Jackson Mankowski at the heavyweight spot. Now, Penn State's definitely going to shut out North Dakota State. Against Stanford, though, let's see where some of these go, right? The toss-ups truly, Luke Lilledahl, I'm going to favor him, but I'm also not going to dismiss Nico Provo. Tyler Knox and Marcus Blaze, I'm expecting Marcus Blaze to win, but Tyler Knox is top 10 for a reason. Shane Van Ness, I think that one's a win against Aiden Valencia. PJ Duke, okay, against Daniel Cardenas. This is somebody that is a finals contender here. This is the matchup. These are some of these early postseason matchups that we're going to get to see. Mitchell Messenbrink could absolutely meet Hunter Garvin in the NCAA postseason. And Levi Haines against Lorenzo Norman. That one's just a fun one that I want to watch. What kind of upside does Norman have for the postseason down the road? But as always, Penn State could definitely shut out both of these teams, even though Stanford will be tougher to do so against this time around. So these matchups go down. Nashville, Tennessee, Journeyman Duals, 5 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern time, back-to-back. North Dakota State is up first. Stanford is up second. Really appreciate each and every one of you for joining me here on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions to go through it all, to break down the history of it, talk about some recent takeaways from Wyoming, and why I think Nate Desmond should be in the starting lineup at 141 now that the opportunity has presented itself. That's going to do it for this episode. Really appreciate the support on the channel. Thank you so much for joining me here on this episode. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around all your favorite Penn State sports teams, regardless. Penn State wrestling, Penn State football. We'll talk recruiting. We'll talk basketball, hockey, all of it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.